Good evening, and welcome to another drastic version of Diatribes from the Voice of Doom. Now here's your draconian and dramaturgic host, Voice of Doom. Hello. I'm back, and I was throwing together a bunch of concepts and ideas in the back of my head to do another diatribe, and I'm glad that I watch YouTube about 5 hours a day and watch all kinds of crap and good stuff and various opinions and this and that, because it gives me ideas on what to talk about. Now, I've been getting feeds lately because I tend to watch these YouTube installments of police officers who have their little cameras on their lapels. I can't remember what they're called. But they're recording everything when they're making arrests and such because they want to cover their ass. And I don't blame them one little bit. But it tends to fill the internet with all kinds of episodes of people getting arrested. And I wanted to talk about the police state. A police state of mind. And I was thinking, how does a corrupt system of government create a police state without anybody really noticing? And I'm going to try to explain it to you. First of all, people have probably been arrested, and there's probably been brouhahas and fracases throughout history. If you go back into history, there's been a myriad of horrible criminality by families, by individuals. Total evil. It's nothing new. But now that we all have cameras in our hands, and the police have cameras on their lapels, and there's cameras everywhere, then you get to see it. And you think that the world's gone to the dogs because of all this crime. Well, it has gone to the dogs, but crime is no better or worse than it ever has been. But I see these Karens, and sometimes Kens, getting arrested, and I can't help but admire the stalwart enforcers of the law for their patience. Now, I know they're not going to start putting on all kinds of stuff with police acting like, thugs and beating people up, and all kinds of people of color dying for no good reason because they're being killed because of racism and white supremacy. You're not going to see that too much unless it serves a certain purpose for the D's and all the other evil entities. But as I'm watching these Karens getting arrested, all I can think of is just beat the freaking crap out of her. Just drive her to a river and dump her, because these people are miserable people. And they really shouldn't be taking up all the air on this planet, because they're just absolute spoiled, rotten, screaming brats. Oh, I know the law. What are my rights? I don't understand. Yeah, they're just idiots. But you get to the point, you watch all these people getting arrested, and it's like, man, I wouldn't blame the police if they just, let's talk about Clockwork Orange. Just take them to a freaking field and start putting their head underwater, because they're sickening. But how do you create a police state? You have all these patient enforcers that are trying to just do their job. You've broken the law. I've given you every chance to get out of being arrested, but you got to keep pushing it until I have to arrest you. And they end up going through the system and getting off anyway. So it must be very frustrating for them. But let's go back into the depths of history. Now, there was a war in the late 1910s called World War I. And it was a big political brouhaha where all kinds of countries were aching for war because they wanted to create a new world order, and the only way to do that was to destroy the old order. So a war was precipitated, and I won't go into detail about that. It's very confusing. But it was basically the Germans against the Allies, the usual gang. And the Germans lost, and when they lost, the victors put together a thing called the Treaty of Versailles, which was one of the worst documents ever put together by human hands, because it made it possible for World War II to happen, because the conditions on that treaty were so draconian to the Germans that there was nothing left to do but be anarchists, and there was anarchy everywhere. And the people got sick of it. They got sick of seeing people rush up and down the street killing each other and fighting and beating and just mayhem. And a person came along named Schicklgruber that started with a strong arm of keeping those riots and those beatings going and killings, but then convinced the populace that they needed law and order, and the Nazi Party would bring law and order, and it did. Because if you look at history, you will see that most totalitarian regimes eventually get to the point where everybody's kept in line, and there is law and order, because if you do anything out of line, then you get dragged away and killed. But the people wanted law and order, and they got law and order from a bunch of unlawful, evil entities, which ended up destroying their country. So let's go back to the Karens and go back to why what used to be America and the populace that inhabits that desolate wasteland will be begging for law and order. They will be begging for a police state, and they will like it. It's very obvious. The first thing you do is you make anarchy, just like in World War II, or post-World War I, going toward World War II. You create anarchy, and how do you do that? Well, it's very simple. You don't arrest criminals. If you arrest them, you let them go right away and let them commit crimes over and over and over again. And then you make it hard for people to even be able to defend themselves or their property. Now, I think you can have a lot of compassion for armed robbers and muggers, people that use violence to take what they want, because according to AOC, they are hungry. They are Jean Valjean from Les Miserables, stealing a loaf of bread for their family because they are starving. So they're all noble people. They've made laws all over the place, especially in the squalor of the big cities, which are turning into infested, disease-ridden urban areas where millions are going to die eventually. But you tell people, please open a store here because we have nothing. We've been oppressed. Nobody likes us. You're a racist because we don't have a grocery store in our neighborhood. So please open up a store so we can loot it, and you cannot do anything about it. There are laws now. You don't fight back. And it's just like they use this theory that insurance will pay for everything. Well, the insurance companies are going to be bankrupt if they're not already. Just paying for all this theft. And the theft is passed on to the consumer if they are stupid enough to stay in business. Now, if I was in a city, an urban area, and I had a business, I would try to sell it while it was still intact and get the hell out of there. That's the only thing you can do. But the bottom line is eventually there's not going to be any businesses, no mom and pops, no kiosks, no bodegas, nothing. Why would you want to do it? If you rob me, I can't do anything about it, and if I call the police, you're not going to come. So just let me get pillaged and looted. Excuse me. And, I'll just keep on struggling. I'm trying to make a profit. I'm selling items, and I make a little bit of profit on each item I sell, but then people come in and just clean me out. And I know all those Gucci purses and jewelry will buy a lot of bread for those starving people who are oppressed. But it's obvious what's happening now. Let's go back to a different kind of police state. I heard on the radio, I would never actually search for this person to hear what he has to say, but I accidentally heard the voice of Breadline Bernie, who would love to see bread lines because that's the proper way for a society to operate. So that's his dream, but he was talking about the election coming up, which won't happen. And he said, Orangey cannot be allowed to be president again because he caused an insurrection. Now, I don't want to say this one more time. This is the last time I'm going to say this. I don't want to have to repeat myself like Hannity. Orangey wanted, and he knew there would be an upset crowd after the election because everybody saw how much cheating there was. And he said to Pelosi, please get National Guard at the Capitol, because when these votes are verified, there's going to be trouble. Not because he makes trouble, just because everybody knows that there was cheating, and there's a lot of people out there that just kind of want to take their aggressions out. So he wanted to alleviate that. He said, send the National Guard, send more security to the Capitol, because there may be demonstrations. We'll call them that. And Pelosi said, no, there's no need for that. Now, they put up fences around the Capitol every time one of these D's sneeze. They might have the malady. So let's cordon off everything. They've done it many, many times. They cordon off the capitals and the monuments whenever the government shuts down, because instead of saying, let's try to spend our money better, they say, let's shut down the monuments so the tourists can't see what they paid for and is part of our so-called national heritage. So we've seen that happen. It's disgusting. We know what they're doing. We just want to make the common clay suffer. But I don't want to ever say this again. If you guys don't get it through your head, then go live in your dream world and get ready for the conflagration. Because Orangey had nothing to do with any insurrection. The only people that had anything to do with it were the D's. Because they knew there was going to be problems. And they wanted problems, and they made it happen, and they escorted all the insurrectionists into the Capitol, only to have them arrested later. And they've started the police state because the sentences handed down to these people who either planned or participated in this so-called insurrection have been given sentences that are way beyond what they would give to a rapist. I'll say it. Or a murderer. So we have a police state, but they are only doing it to people that broke a window or walked into the Capitol uninvited. So they will get to the point very soon where the common clay will be dragged away. We will be put into FEMA camps if we're lucky, or we will be dealt with. So that's kind of like part one. I'm going to go into something more later about the logistics of doom, because I want to discuss with everybody, if things go bad, what are people going to do? How are people going to act? Because the police state's coming. It's a police state of mind. And we're going to be begging for it. Because when the crime gets bad enough, we will say, please send everybody you can to protect us. And we'll all be clamped down. So that's that. I think I said enough, and I think it was pretty good. I like it when I just freeform it. So I'll come up with another one maybe tomorrow morning. And enjoy the day. My microcosm sucks, so that's why I'm a little bit irked. Talk to you later. Bye.